and welcome back to the most amazing channel on the internet. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today we're talking about the top 10 scary morgue stories. Before we get into this video, I just want you guys to answer this for me. Does death scare you? I have to admit that actually it does scare me. I've been getting a lot better at not being afraid of things over recent years, but death still makes me feel uneasy. Although, as JK Rowling says as Dumbledore, to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. Some of the adventures on this story are terrifying. Also, before we get into this, why don't you leave a good thumbs up and share this video with a friend. Also, if you guys want to connect with me on social media, my link to my Instagram is in the description box. See you there. Okay, can you handle these morgue stories? Because I certainly can't. Coming in at number 10, we have the person who woke up as the needle cut in. Guys, imagine waking up during your own autopsy. What a truly hellish nightmare. This story comes from 2007 when 33-year-old Carlos Cameo was involved in a car accident and declared dead at the scene. His so-called body was taken to a morgue and examiners had begun his autopsy, which was when he woke up. Carlos woke up when medics began cutting into him because of, and I quote, the excruciating pain. I'll say. Carlos began bleeding when he was cut, which is a sign a person is alive. After a short time, he screamed out and made his living status well and truly known. His wife had already been told that her husband had died, and she came to identify his body, only to find him alive and waiting in the corridor. What is this story? The Venezuelan man conducted a number of interviews with news publications, and he even posed somberly with his autopsy request. Basically, it clearly states that he's dead. What a story, although I guess in some twisted way it's a happy tale, but oh my god, can you even imagine? A horror story more so for the family. Up next at number 9, we have a case of the wrong body. At Berwick Funeral Chapel in Nova Scotia, Canada, the body of Sandra Bennett was accidentally cremated against her family's wishes. Sandra Bennett died aged 65 on the 20th of December 2017. This is already a stressful time of year for someone to die, what with Christmas just days away. The family were presented with some even more stressful news on the day of the funeral. On December the 27th, a week after she died, Sandra Bennett's family were preparing to see their loved one for a final time ahead of her funeral that very same day. Unfortunately, they were presented with the wrong body. When they told the morgue workers they were very sorry about it, they apologized, then they showed them another body, still not Sandra's, but this one was wearing her clothes. Then, after checking their notes, they discovered that Sandra had accidentally been cremated in place of another body at another funeral. Then the son of one of the other women had to be called and told that his mother had been embalmed and displayed as another woman, and the person cremated at his mother's funeral wasn't actually his mother. How genuinely distressing for the three families involved. Okay, next up, having a baby is scary enough, but waking up in a morgue after a C-section has to be one of the worst ways that situation can play out. Find out more at number 8. I have to admit, childbirth is truly terrifying to me. I do want kids one day, but the thought of, all of that just is a lot. Birthing an entire human is pretty scary. Anyway, this Saudi Arabian woman's story doesn't make the thought any less terrifying. So in 2011, a woman was pronounced dead by doctors after she went into labor and needed a C-section. The woman was at the Al Jaara hospital in Kuwait City when doctors mistakenly declared her dead. They sent her off down to the morgue, where it seems she woke up surrounded by dead bodies. She screamed for help for 2 solid hours before she was rescued. Can you even imagine? The last thing you remember is going into labor and then you wake up in a morgue. She must have been terrified for her baby. Her poor husband too. He thought his wife was dead. The new mother said that she was traumatized and she could have, I quote, perished alive of horror, cold, lack of food and water. She also said, the Asian worker who let me out of the morgue has been missing and no longer works at the hospital. I suspect that they're trying to prevent him from testifying for me. I'm just happy that actually she was alive and got to raise her child. Next up, we have paranormal goings on at number 7. We have the slamming door. In March 2017, a video emerged from a Brazilian morgue that chilled people to their cores. The footage appears to have been shot from a security guard's phone camera. I have to be honest with you, I don't like this one bit. Lights flash as the 2 security team members walk down a hall and a red door is repeatedly opening and banging shut. When they go to investigate, there's nobody around. This clearly is a case of a spooky haunted morgue corridor, like I don't know what else to say. There's a ghost and they're angry. The video quickly went viral online and was spooking people out across the net. Morgue ghosts. Of all the places that you could haunt as a spook, would you choose a morgue? I don't know, let me know. I think I'd choose a stately home, or actually, I take that back, something inanimate like a wig or something that would just fly and freak people out. So a 2016 BuzzFeed article about funeral home workers published some very unsettling stories, and this one really got me creeped out. At number 6, we have glue to stop the eyes and mouth popping. As morgue workers confirmed that super strength glue is used to seal the eyelids and mouths of bodies, they basically said it's done so they don't fly open dramatically during funerals. How do they know to do this? Well, it's happened in the past. Now, if the eyes opened, they would look horrifyingly bulgy, and if the mouth opened, a lolloping inflated purple tongue could protrude out, which wouldn't be ideal. Apparently, the morgue workers are also pretty damn scared of gluing themselves to the body too. Again, it's happened. At number 5, we have the man who drank himself to death but then woke up with a hangover in the morgue fridge. What a story. In December 2016, stories emerged of a Polish drinker who rose up from the dead only to demand more drinks. What a lad. Nostravie. 25-year-old Camille from Warklaw was drinking hard. So hard. Now, normal Polish drinking is pretty hard to us, but this was like Polish hard drinking, which is a beast unto itself. Camille drank so much vodka that he collapsed and died of a heart attack in his local pub. Medics tried to revive him at the scene, but again, at hospital he was declared dead. Though, the thing is, despite an apparent death from cardiac arrest, he woke up hours later in the morgue fridge. Seriously, that must be one of the worst hangovers of all time. Morgue workers heard banging coming from Camille's unit, and luckily they let him out before he could freeze to death. When they went to investigate, they found him nude and asking for a blanket. Quickly, asking for a blanket wasn't the only thing he wanted. Honey needed another drink. Rising from the dead is thirsty work, and luckily for Camille, the morgue was near his favourite watering hole. He simply got up, shook it off, and went back to the boozer for another drink. Once again, Nostravie, sir. Now, while this story does sound like all kinds of lols, it should serve as a warning. Camille did rise again, but he did initially die from vodka-induced heart attack, so maybe lay off the vodka for a bit. Coming in at number 4, we have maggots. Maggots. Blah, maggots. Maggots are a scary but regular horror story in many morgues. Decomposition is slowed by chilling bodies, but if this is delayed, bodies can become infested with maggots. In 2017, the premium mortuary services in Carlisle, Ohio was shut down after, I quote, several unrefrigerated bodies were found to be decomposing, including one partially covered in mold and another that had begun to mummify, and there was a third that was being eaten by maggots. Hip hip hurrah! It was also reported that the facility smelled like decomposition and the floor was littered with dead flies. It seems that their cooler system wasn't working properly. It was displaying temperatures of 20 degrees Celsius, which isn't okay for bodies. Blech. Another morgue in Fresno, California also complained that their morgue was infested with maggots, so I guess it happens. Okay, this is absolutely harrowing. We have the woman who was declared dead in the morgue and mistakenly buried alive at number 3. 37-year-old Rosangela Almeida dos Santos was declared dead in 2018. She had arrived at hospital a week earlier with severe fatigue and later went into cardiac arrest. It was said that she died of septic shock, but actually, it turns out she wasn't dead. She was taken to a morgue and prepared for burial. She was later buried in a concrete tomb in a cemetery in Ricacho das Neves. Weirdly, people heard screams coming from her grave. At first they thought, ooh, maybe she's haunted, but actually, the rumors became so much that 11 days after she was buried, her mother had her body exhumed. What did they find? Rosangela dead, but warm. She had bruises and scratches on her hands and knees and blood on the inside roof of the coffin. Sadly, it seems the doctors and morgue workers got it wrong. She wasn't dead. She woke up to find that she'd been buried alive and then died trying to fight her way out of a coffin. Literally, my worst nightmare. Coming in at number 2, we have a woman who was frozen alive in a morgue. In 2014, a grandmother was frozen alive after mistakenly being pronounced dead. So what happened? When morgue workers went to collect the body of Maria de Jesus Arroyo for post-mortem, they found her face down on the floor in her body bag. When they opened up the bag, they found her nose broken and her face face covered so badly with cuts and bruises that they couldn't cover up her injuries with makeup. When the family found out, they were going to sue the morgue for gross negligence, but when an expert stepped in to survey the situation, they discovered that the injuries happened when she was alive. Basically, it seems that she'd been wrongly declared dead by the hospital, sent off to the morgue where she was put in a freezer. She then began to freeze alive, and in the process of freezing, she woke up in a body bag, tried to get out, fell off, then froze again. Ugh. Really horrible way to go. Oh, number one really does chill me to my core. Like, it's disgusting. Maybe don't listen if you're not into disgusting things. So there are a lot of scary stories involving the deceased Jimmy Savile, but this is, you know, one of many. Either way though, his morgue antics were abominable. And at number one, we have Jimmy Savile basically molesting dead bodies. Jimmy Savile was a British DJ and television personality who died aged 84 in 2011. While he was alive, he encountered sporadic accusations of sexual abuse, but sadly, only after his death were these allegations taken seriously. Now, according to a number of news articles published after his death, it was an open secret that Savile would abuse dead bodies at Stoke Mandeville Hospital in Buckinghamshire. The star had unrestricted access to the hospital and spent a lot of time there. It's now claimed that between 1968 and 1992, he abused over 60 living victims at the hospital, and that doesn't account for the amount of dead he also abused. Ugh. A former therapist at the hospital said that they'd been told that Savile regularly had sex with dead bodies in the mortuary. A nurse said how she was warned by bosses not to go down there if Savile was in the building, and a night porter even claims he saw Savile wheeling a dead body of a 4-year-old girl into the morgue. It's also thought that he abused bodies at the Leeds General Infirmary. What a disgusting man. It seems more clear than ever following his death that he used his considerable charitable efforts and philanthropy as a smokescreen to hide his twisted intentions. It's just a real shame he was never brought to justice when he was alive. So guys, that was the top 10 scary morgue stories. What did you think to this list? Let me know in the comments section down below. Also, you know what? Why don't you tell a little joke down there, because this video has got a little bit too dark for my liking. Okay, before I go, I want to read some comments from one of my most recent videos. So we're moving from morgues to McDonald's in a seamless fashion. I did the top 10 scary McDonald's urban legends part 2, and this is what you had to say. Nikki Lol wrote, "What a juicy video." Carly Richardson said, "I had a friend order a triple McGangbang a few years ago. The guy at the counter knew the joke and got him his order. Best thing ever." Darian Mossley also confirmed this by saying, "I've worked at 2 different McDonald's in 2 different states, and if you ask for a McGangbang, then we'll make it. It's not officially on the menu, but you'd get charged for a double cheeseburger plus $1 and bam, McGangbang." So guys, it turns out that the McGangbang isn't an urban legend after all, so I guess McGangbangs for everyone. Thank you guys for watching this video. Do be sure to leave a comment for a chance of being featured in our next most amazing top 10 video. Also, don't forget to leave me a comment with your thoughts on this video. Also, we're always open to suggestions as to what top 10s we should film next, so if you've got any ideas, then do leave them in the comment section down below. Before you go, why don't you leave this video with a big thumbs up, share it with a friend, and stay subscribed for more most amazing lists. I'm your host, Rebecca Felgate, and I'll catch you in the next video.